like that one, there's always that one question that's like, wow, I could do that, or maybe we could do this better. Or so I appreciate that. I keep my eye on what you're doing with Hue Society. I think you're doing some beautiful, amazing things. And so this is really cool to get to be a part of what you're doing. And I'm excited to share Washington wine and specifically Red Mountain where I am, because I think that Washington is like kind of this like, sometimes people say, oh, it's the best kept secret. I'm like, that is not a compliment. I don't want to be anybody's best kept secret. That is not cool. But we're producing some amazing wines out of this state. The crazy thing is that we're second producing, but way behind California. And that's crazy to me when we say that, because we're so far behind California as far as like the number of acres we have planted, the cases of wines that we produce, the number of years that we've been producing wine, we're way behind. But I do have a question for you. I have a question on the screen. It's just super simple. I know that you have experience in wine, so I didn't want to ask you some of the like obvious, crazy, easy wine questions. I don't know how many of you have been in barrel rooms before. I'm going to show you, just give you a peek at our barrels. But I did want to ask you if you knew what type of oak has looser grains. Is that American oak or French oak? You can toss it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and just let me know what your thoughts are around the grains in oak, looser grains, American oak or French oak.
I have not come across that question in terms of the grains.
Yeah, I'm
Interesting.
curious what you think. I see in the chat, let's see who, not sure, but I think American. Okay. All right. What do you think, Nadine?
Oh, looser. I'm going to go with Americans.
Okay, well, you were going with the right answer. So here's the thing about, when we make a decision to use French oak or American oak, we think about things like the grains. If you think, American oak has looser grains, so the relationship with that wine, like really integrating into it, you get more assertive um, flavor characteristics from that oak. And French oak has tighter grains. And so French oak usually imparts more subtle characteristics. For an area that I'm in, like Red Mountain, where we are an extremely warm wine region, we have grapes that ripen really easily. We get an hour more of sunshine than California does. So based on our environment, we get insanely ripe wine grapes. And so we want to showcase the fruit characteristics of it. And we don't necessarily want to have the wood overtake that. And so French oak, for our preference, just really enhances that the fruit that you get versus like being so aggressive and assertive like American oak can be on the wine. If I were making wine another region, a different region, I think American oak might be more of a preference for me. But because I'm sourcing fruit from Red Mountain and using exclusively Red Mountain for all of our red wines here and our white wine, then French oak tends to just give me the flavor characteristics in a way that we like to see that with our wines. So um, if you didn't know this, it's kind of cool with that. American oak really also has, dill and coconut, those sort of things that you don't necessarily get out of French oak. So from a flavor standpoint, you get something a little bit different. So I did want to just kind of highlight a little bit about Washington State. Not quite sure, Jennifer, if you've been to Washington State. When most folks think about Washington State, they think Seattle. Where I live, which is 3 hours east of Seattle, it's extremely different. Seattle is plush and green, lots of flowers and trees. It's raining a lot. It's gray a lot of the year. They have a lot of water. They're near the Pacific Ocean. We're extremely different in Eastern Washington. Most of the agriculture in our state is grown here, including our wine grapes. We're very dry, deserty, very warm. We have what's called a diurnal shift, where it's really hot during the daytime, and we get a 30 to 40 degree shift swing in temperature during the evening. And wine grapes love that because you get the ripeness during the day and you get that really balance of acid. But like you see on the screen, we're the second largest wine region in the state. We grow over 80 varieties here. We work with 10 to 12 different wine grape varieties, but we grow over 80 it's crazy because sometimes I learn new things going to other wineries in our state. I go over and they're like, "Oh, this is a whatever." I'm like, "Wait, what is that? How do you pronounce that?" So it's really great to learn. And I think that's the thing that makes Washington unique in some ways because when you think about other areas, like my neighbors in the Willamette Valley in Oregon, they're known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. We're not really known for something because there's so many things that grow really well here. Cab, Merlot, Petit Verdot, Grenache, Mourvedre, Cinsault, Counois. From white wine standpoint, we grow Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Semillon. I mean, you name it, Ruzan, Marzan, like there's so many things that grow so well here and we make so incredibly well that it's hard for a consumer to think about like, well, what is Washington known for? I say we're just known for great wines because we can do so many amazing things. Most of the wineries here, we have over 1,000 wineries, and most of us, over 90% of us, are small family-owned wineries. That's crazy for a wine region like us. Over 90% of these wineries are small family-owned wineries, meaning that they're like 5,000 cases and under. Um, these are some key stats that we kind of look at. We like to know like where do we for Frichette because we're one of those smaller family-owned wineries. Like where do we stand when it comes to number of wineries and sizes and things like that? Um, one of the smaller ones out of the 1,000 wineries, 400 growers, tonnage wise. I don't know if this makes a difference to you. For us, we look at this in our state and how many tons of wine grapes are being produced, and we always think about like how many acres are planted. I will say it's 50,000 plus. It used to be almost 70,000. So we all know like the wine industry is just really going through a thing. It's like, a relationship where you're kind of feeling like you're breaking up with someone. I think that's kind of how the wine industry is right now. It's like we don't quite know where we stand with people. So how does that impact the vineyards? Like how does that impact our crop? It means that it makes more sense. And I know this kind of seems really weird because if I had like apple and apricot trees in my yard and I decided that, you know what, I'm going to be traveling for a year, I wouldn't necessarily pull those out. I just be like, well, maybe I won't do anything with them. They'll have fruit and it'll fall to the ground and, we'll see what happens. But the risk with vineyards is that if you don't take care of them, they can develop diseases, and that will impact all of the vineyards around you and can impact other crops. So for vineyards, for growers, their decision is, well, do I pay a crew to take care of them? That means I just kind of spend money and this fruit is not going to sell, so I just take a loss. Or do I just pay a percentage of that to just pull these vines out? Some wine regions actually have penalties if you have what's called abandoned vineyards. So in our state, the county that I'm in, we're not a county that has a penalty for abandoned vineyards, but it probably would piss your neighbors off and they really wouldn't be happy if they're trying to take care of their vineyard and you're have an abandoned vineyard. You probably get run out of town. So our acreages are down because we pulled some vines out and for various reasons too. I mean, by the time, let's say Sharice was talking about going to Hue Society's festival that's coming up. I mean, you may go there and like there's a varietal that's popping, right? So like Savi B, that's making a comeback. I mean, think about like the runway to, if I wanted to plant Sauvignon Blanc, I'm sourcing the rootstock, I'm planting it. If I want to do it right, by third year, I'm pulling the fruit. It's going to take me the way that I make wines another 10 months to get that into a bottle. That trend might be gone. So it's an incredibly long runway when you make the wine the way that I do, where I'm either growing the fruit or sourcing directly from the vineyard to make those wines. So I think Washington is a really special place. I think it's a phenomenal region to start to look at for wine and really really put that on your radar. And I'm happy to be a part of this industry. We grow a lot of, as you can see on the left, that red pie chart, a lot of Cabernet Sauvignon. We say Cab is king in Washington, not because it's like the best wine we make, but really because it's the most widely grown red wine grape variety in our states. This is so crazy looking at this graph because just a couple years ago it was very different. Cab was still king, but Merlot was the second most widely grown variety in what we brought in, and now I'm seeing like Syrah is overtaking that. So I think that's kind of cool. Over on the white wine side, a lot of folks know Washington because Saint Michelle makes a lot of Riesling. When they were thriving in their best days, they were making almost 10 Rieslings, everything from instant really dry Riesling. The Rieslings were in every store. I mean, like you can go to
Yes.
Walmart, right? Nadine,
Yes.
you can go to the Walmart and there was like 4 or 5 Rieslings from Saint Michelle.
That
I
was my
mean,
first Riesling.
everywhere. Yes.
Not
And
Yes.
right? Saint Michelle, right? And it was kind of fancy to say Chateau Saint Michelle. I mean, it really was. And the cool thing, and if you've been to Washington State, if you're headed over to Seattle area, Woodinville is just 15 miles north.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's a gorgeous chateau. They do a real nice job, and we're grateful to them because they really put Washington wine on the map. I mean, they were able to get into markets that smaller wineries just, couldn't dream of getting into. They also brought attention to Washington wine, not just in the United States, but also globally. So we really are grateful for all the work that they've done. They've been selling their brands off and really letting go of a lot of their contracts. I don't know if you guys been watching some of the wine news in Washington, but they really pulled away from some of their key vineyards that they had tight contracts on. And it was bittersweet, especially for the growers who were just like, whoa, my only person is Saint Michelle. I don't have to go out to fruit. But the opportunity that it gave, though, is for some of these iconic vineyards that a lot of us just couldn't get our foot in the door. Now that fruit is available for us to play around with. So it's just some bittersweet news there. On the white wine side, though, I will say that the crazy thing about that graphic over there is that the largest, the biggest white wine variety we had in our state was Chardonnay. But even though there was so much Riesling out with Saint Michelle, but now you see that Riesling is creeping up on Chardonnay. I think the reason why that is because nobody in Washington could touch Riesling at the price point that Saint Michelle can make it for. And so, a lot of folks just was like, I can't make I don't know what it sold for in Walmart, like a $5, $6 Riesling. Most of our producers couldn't make a Riesling with that price point. So you just, couldn't play in the market. So now that there's less pressure in the market for that, you see more smaller producers really, looking at that varietal and being really intentional about it and making it in some sweet and dry styles. Looking at making it from different parts of our state. So I think that's pretty exciting as well. The variety that we work with on the white wine side is exclusively Semillon, which is kind of fun to see. It says over there that there's Semillon used to be in the where it says other white wine varieties. Semillon used to be in that category when we were sourcing it. So it's kind of cool to see that it has its own, like it's actually named now. It was crazy trying to convince folks to give it a try, to give it a shot. But I think that Semillon is growing a little more traction. So that's a lot of fun. And then just a couple things I wanted to share with you in case you weren't as interested, hopefully you are interested, weren't as familiar, let me say, with Washington wine. These are our American viticulture areas. And when I first started in wine, I think we had 12 AVAs, and now we're up to 21. Where the largest one for wines in your market, like for any Washington wines that are in Arkansas, Nadine, I think you were in Georgia.
I was, yeah. I'm in Michigan now.
Oh, okay. Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
You're getting closer to Washington. Okay, awesome.
I'm in
That's
Georgia.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, there's people in Georgia there.
In Georgia. Uh, so if you find wines in your market, in Georgia and Michigan and Arkansas, most likely when it comes to AVA, they'll either say Washington State or it will say Columbia Valley. Folks would know Columbia Valley before they would know some of our smaller AVAs. My winery is in that little tiny triangle, that red triangle called Red Mountain. Red Mountain is tucked right next to a newer AVA called Candy Mountain. And literally, I can sit on my patio and see Candy Mountain. The cool thing about Red Mountain, where I am, Red Mountain is a very, very small American viticultural area. And when I say it's small, it means that I can hop on a bicycle or a quad and I can go to every single vineyard. That's how small it is. It's only 4,040 acres and about 2,500 acres are planted somewhere in there. 2,800 acres are plantable, and almost all of that is planted. If you're coming here, we have an area called Tri-Cities, which that really isn't a city, it's just a region. But you just fly into the Tri-Cities and you can drive 15 minutes and you're right here at my winery on Red Mountain. That's like almost 20 wineries out here now. It's really cool, very country, lots of, I know when Nadine was here, she like went through this crazy bumpy road. I'm like, oh my God, don't go through that road. It doesn't go through, but the map sent her through that way. To do it, but it's still very rural out here and just kind of a neat place. I live right here where the winery is, and so that's really cool to raise our son here and to be here. But as I was sharing, Red Mountain's 4,000 acres. It's one of the smallest and one of the hottest AVAs. It says average temperature is 9 degrees, but we do get up to over 100 a few days in the year. That poses a little bit of a problem. I'm kind of dealing with when I show you. I'm going to grab my iPhone and we'll take a little bit of a tour in just a moment. It poses a problem with the vines. I mean, the vines they can shut down when it gets too warm, and what we are kind of forced to do is give them a lot of water, and that vine will take that water and focus on survival mode, like growth. And so the canopy gets really big and it looks kind of cool because it's very jungly and you have all this green everywhere, but that's really not the result that we want. We don't want the energy to go to creating a ton of leaves and a ton of tendrils and a big canopy. We want the energy to be to the fruit because we want robust and um, very strong flavor characteristics. And so we kind of have to really, watch closely what the vine is needing on those super, super hot days. So it doesn't do us any favors when it's over 100 degrees. And we only get like 5 to 6 inches of rain a year. It's very desert-like. So we are so grateful for our rivers here because that's how we irrigate. We have to pull water from the rivers to feed our wine grapes. My AVA that I'm in, pretty new, 2001 designated, planted to a lot of Cab, a lot of Merlot, a lot of Syrah. There's some like Chenin Blanc planted here. There's a little bit of, anybody fans of Chenin Blanc, by the way?
I am. That's interesting.
Yes. So,
Ah,
yeah, Kiona, they were the
Yes.
first winery out here. They make the Chenin Blanc. They're in their third generation winemaker right now. The winemaker Tyler has traveled all over the world to make wine other places. So he's coming in, and white wine is really his jam. So he's very focused in on and there are growers too. So our Simeon, they're the growers for that, which I'm every time I see Tyler, I'm just like, hey, dude, I know you are just in love with white wines, but please, can you make sure you still are being a good grower to me and not use all of it for your portfolio and sell me some of
right.
it. So, but Chenin Blanc they make, Gewürztraminer, Riesling.
Hmm.
I think they're
What's the name
Chlorella.
of that winery again? How do you spell it?
It's a Kiona. It's pronounced
Oh,
Kiona.
yep. Okay.
Yeah, they some people say Kiona, but but it's pronounced Kiona, and they are nationally distributed. So
Okay.
they're in
Interesting.
they most likely would be in your state. The neat thing too though is that they're family owned. Grandpa who started, he's usually walking over there in his overalls complaining like nobody ever listens to him.
Wow.
So if you happen to visit them and you see this gray-haired guy with beard and complaining, that's him.
Wow.
Generation still actively working there. Like I said, the third generation winemaker, and then the other kid that they have is on their marketing side. So
That's awesome.
yeah. So Chenin Blanc is definitely that's probably what I buy from them is their Chenin Blanc. I like their they do a nice rosé of Sangiovese as well. Good acid on it. Really rare to find red wines, and also even sorry, really rare to find white wines on the mountain, and also rare to find rosé.
Mm.
Red wine is Red Mountain uh grows for high tier, meaning that the fruit is cropped um, pretty heavily for red wine because you want less fruit so you can get higher quality. And when you're making rosé, you're looking for a good acid. I mean, you're looking for flavor too, but you don't have to have it so intense and so ripe because you're picking it earlier. But most of the vineyards here aren't farmed to produce rosé, so it's not that common that you'll find one. But Cayenne, like I said, they were the first ones out here, so they took some risks. If you ask them, they'll say they didn't really know what they were doing, so they're kind of planting these varieties that you never really would guess would be on Red Mountain, and they're thriving and doing a really nice job.
Awesome.
And just a couple final slides, and then I'll get you out to see our tasting room, and then I'll take you over to our vineyard and then barrel room, so you can kind of see what we have here. This is my husband and myself. We're Greg and Shae Frichette, and our story revolves around flipping a coin and knocking on doors. Greg is from here. He's from Tri-Cities area. He's a Pasco boy, born and raised, was 4-H kid, raised sheep. His family has a little wheat ranch in Colfax, which is a couple of hours from here. And I'm from South Carolina, so my folks from Georgia. I loved visiting your state, especially when I was in college, going to UGA for the parties.
Okay, go dogs. Okay.
um, but we met in California after college. I went to Winthrop University after college. I drove cross country to LA because had a degree and earned a degree in theater, and wanted to test out my skills on the theatrical stage. And so I hightailed it to California, and in a couple years, I met my husband, Greg. After being married for a few years, he said, life is good. Let's have a baby and move closer to our parents. And I assumed that meant we were going to move closer to my parents in South Carolina, but he was assuming we moved closer to his parents here in Washington State. And we argued back and forth, and just neither one of us were giving in. We just couldn't get on the same page. And one evening, Greg was just like, you know what? Let's not do this anymore. Let's not argue about this. Let's leave it to fate. Let's flip a quarter. If it lands on heads, we move to Washington. If it lands on tails, we go to South Carolina. And we were on our second bottle of wine, so we both thought it was a phenomenal idea to flip this coin, right? So Greg flips the quarter, and it lands on heads for Washington. So I said best out of 5. And he goes, no, 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 no. We agreed wherever it landed, that's where we were going to move. Then I checked it to make sure it wasn't a two-headed coin, and it wasn't. So life, I guess I would say life brought us here, but I guess the flip of a coin brought us here. And as we were considering moving, I just really wanted to do something that would give us goosebumps. And I enjoyed wine, and I wanted to grow something and make something together. And we just decided we go into wine. We kind of stumbled upon Red Mountain, popped out here to go to a winery, loved the vibe here, loved that a lot of the owners lived on site. It's very rural and kind of country, and we just wanted a piece of that pie. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything for sale. So Greg and I just went knocking on doors, asking people to sell to us. And the place that we have, those owners said no 4 times before saying yes. So finally they say yes. Sometimes I think I'm like, man, we really wore them down, didn't we? But they're sweet people, and they told us later on that they didn't want to stand in the way of a dream that we had, and so they wanted to sell to us because they thought we could do much better with this property. So here's my family. This is my husband Greg, our son Jaden, who I call our future winemaker, although he says that he wants to be a pilot, and I'm trying to convince him to be a winemaker. He knows how to work all of our equipment. Gosh, he's amazing on a tractor. Let me tell you, since he was an infant, my father-in-law had him on a tractor, taught him how to use the bucket. He can clear lands, he can move pallets. The kid is like a genius when it comes to manufacturing and production. He knows how to, when he was in preschool, you know, you have to walk the kids in the class. I walked him in and I turned my back to walk out, and I heard him say, our Simeon is coming along very well, but that Cabernet Sauvignon, man, that needs some time. And I was like, OMG. First of all, I was impressed that he was correctly pronouncing these varieties. And then I was like, oh, that teacher must feel like we are just like crazy winos or something. I turned back around. I was like, and I saw her mouth was like wide open. I said, I know this, dialogue my son just had may seem very inappropriate for this classroom. I apologize for that. I will have a conversation with him about talking about alcohol, but I was like, we work in wine, and he just hears us talk about it all the time. And really, it's coming from that sort of a place. And so that was really neat to let her know. And then she was just like, so what are your parents making now? I was like, I don't know, in the classroom talking to my kid about wine now. That I don't know about that, but he's having a lot of fun being here, and I love getting to raise him near our vineyards. I always tell people, when you are raising your family on your farm, you farm differently. You really, really, really do. You think about everything you do to this land. You think about everything you put into your vineyard. It is a very different thing where your kid is running through your farm. You think about how you bring in nutrients and pesticides and chemicals and things like that. So when it comes to farming, I know like there's a big thing on like being organically certified, but it's just like that's what most small farmers do anyways. What I've come to learn is that to use harmful chemicals in your on your farm is crazy expensive anyways. I don't even know how people afford it. But thinking about how to farm in a way that's healthy for the people who are walking around your vineyard. Our tasting room, literally right off the patio, are our vines. So I think about all of that when as I farm, that I have kids, I have club members who bring their kids out here, people who bring their pets out here. So farming is it's a totally different looking thing for our family. We have 20 acres. We knocked on doors to get the other acreage that we have around our property. We only have 2.24 acres planted. Our other acreage doesn't have water rights, so we're working on that so that we can plant the rest of it, and then we'll slowly decrease the amount of fruit that we are contracted for from the vineyards around us. We have a tasting room on our property, and then we have our production and our barrel room. So if you're interested in following our story, you can follow at Frichette Winery. That's our handles for all of our social media platforms. I love LinkedIn. It's a platform that I play around with a lot. And then if you want to follow me personally, I do talk about a little bit of wine, not as much Frichette stuff. I talk about any wine that I'm having. I love to garden. I'll put garden pictures up there. I don't post a whole lot on my Instagram. I don't do a whole lot of posting our son. I just don't. If you see him sometimes, it's the side of his face or the back of his face or something like that. But it's usually about kind of some of the things that I'm interested in. And at this point, I'd love to show you around. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen. And then I am going to pop over to my phone. While I'm doing that, though, all I'm going to do is toss you on mute. And or actually, I'm going to toss myself on mute, I should say. And when I put myself on mute, all that means is that you won't hear me fumbling around, but I can hear you. So if you have any questions, feel free to take yourselves off mute and ask those questions, and I can answer those for you.
Definitely was hot when I went. I remember that. I was surprised at how desert-like it was there, but beautiful at the same time. So I will say that. But I'm surprised too, like in terms of all the grapes that are grown there, I always associate Merlot with that region. So, and I love, I don't drink them as much anymore, but I had been to Chateau Saint Michel and loved their Rieslings. So yeah, those are the two wines I associated with Washington. But obviously, I need to do some more exploration.
Yeah, it's desert here.
Yeah,
It is hot.
yeah, definitely. And your rosé, you didn't mention, you said there's not a lot of rosé out there, but what about yours? Are
Interestingly
you still
enough,
making yours?
I do, and I took that rosé off mountain. I actually pulled that rosé from the Columbia Valley because I did make a
Oh,
rosé from Red Mountain. It
okay.
is so big. It's very different than what you would expect from a rosé. For me, my preference of a rosé is a rosé that has great flavor. I like it to have for me, I like it to be a little lower acid and to have a
Mm,
little more weight to it.
mm-hmm.
Red Mountain Rosé was so big. I mean, it
Mm,
was just so heavy
mm,
because we don't crop to make rosés here, and it was very
mm.
expensive as well. The wine from
Okay.
Red Mountain costs about 30% more than any grapes in the state of Washington, and even
Wow.
if you're using it for rosé, it's still extremely expensive. So I
Mm,
decided just to take it off mountain. So that's the
mm.
only wine that I make that's a non-Red Mountain wine.
Got it. Well, it's delicious. So.
Well, thank you.
So, you talked about the trends changing really quickly. How do you, can you predict a trend, or how do you stay on trend, or how do you do that?
Oh, we can't. Can you guys hear her? I can't hear her.
I just want to go say, I
So
can't
you
hear you.
Okay, how's that?
Yes,
Okay, trends are tricky. Do I have everybody now?
yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Trends are tricky because and I think that you probably see this if you work for trends are tricky because they come and then by the time sometimes I know for me, like by the time I catch on to it, it's like too late, right? There's some trends where I'm kind of at the end of it. And it's like that in wine too. It's like, okay, if you can't really try and forecast something coming, then you can almost be behind because there's such a long runway with wine. I mean, there literally is a long runway. What I love with Washington though is sometimes in a lot of cases, we set our own trends. You know, Washington is a younger wine industry. We haven't been making wine for a long time. Our first vines, even on Red Mountain, was in the 70s. And so we kind of break the rules. You know, we make wine the way we want, how we want. Um, you have Syrah in Bordeaux bottles. You have just some untraditional sort of things. And so I think in some ways for Washington, because most of our wine stays in our state anyways, most of our tasting rooms are smaller where the consumers are coming out to us. We can kind of make up our own rules and make what we want and grow what we want. So sometimes I feel like Washington is kind of in this little bubble where we're just kind of doing something and in some ways ignoring what everybody else is doing. So trends for wine, like I said, can almost be very hard because it's such a long runway on the grower and winemaking side. Other questions? I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. Here's my tasting room. So if you are, we'll start with coming through the front. Oh, well, my team locked the door. So, okay, so we'll start with when you're walking through the front door for Frichettes. our tasting room is it's the vibe that I want. It's super comfortable. We have like comfortable, cushy chairs. Um, some really cool artwork. This local artist was 23 and taught himself to paint. So this is kind of his style right now, where he's doing a lot of color. The artwork over here, these are the artwork for the sachet labels. The one on the left that looks like a cape, that's for the rosé, and the one on the right is for the Syrah. Our tasting bar is here. We have a TV that runs where we have a little bit of a slideshow. And you can see, remember I was saying this was a storage shed. So there's a garage door right there. My vision for that is that'll be all glass one day. And then this was a garage door that's a storefront right now. Everybody with me? Can you picture yourself here tasting wine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so now we're going to walk outside. By the way, if you're following us on Instagram, by the time I come back, if you give us a follow, then that should be changed. But that's the current number right now. Okay, so when you walk outside, remember I was telling you that our vineyard is right off of our patio? That's it right there. And then off our patio, and by the way, in the vineyard, what we're looking at, that's Cabernet Sauvignon. The first rows 1 through 19 is Cabernet Sauvignon, and then there's 16 rows behind that is planted to Cabernet Franc. And we source most of our fruit, as I was sharing. Can you roll that first door up, please? Thank you. This is, so these vines right here, when I was sharing with you that it was, really, really hot here. And when it's hot, we water more. So you'll see these drip irrigation lines. So that's my irrigation system right there. So we just pull water with a pump in the back, and we pull water from the Yakima River. And that's what irrigates. But you see how like crazy these vines are right now? Like, look at how heavy this canopy is. Like, it's just really heavy. And here's the problem with that. And we had the choice. I mean, we really had to do this, but here are your grapes right here, right? When that's covered, that's not getting any sun. So I'm going to have to come through and cut this and hedge that off so that I get some sun exposure. That's just very heavy up in here. And I can see why. Here's the reason why it is. When I look at the ground, so since this is right off of our production, when I clean barrels, or if I'm, running water to clean equipment, that water's running right here. And so these vines right here, they're getting extra water and they love it, which I can see. Closer look at the berries. They're not going to get much bigger than they are right now. In another 2-3 weeks, they're going to hit veraison, which just means that they're going to change from green to purple. And then berry development will be done at veraison, and then it's going to go into flavor development. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes. See if we can see Red Mountain. So right behind this vineyard, I'm just going to walk back up towards the taste room, and then we'll go into the barrel room in just a second. So that is Red Mountain. Now, I know you're probably saying it's not red, nor is it a mountain. I totally get it. Red Mountain gets its name because there's a weed called cheatgrass that grows on the mountain during the springtime when we get most of our water, and it turns the mountain red. It gives it this beautiful red hue, and that's where the name comes from. Now, you guys are probably, I don't know if you're familiar with Antinori. It's an Italian winery. They've been making wine for, I don't know, 26 generations. So they were part owner in this winery they started this winery up on the hill. I don't know if you could see it kind of at the top of this, almost at the top of this hill. I'm just going to walk a little bit closer, see if you can see it. So I can see it easily from here. So right above those vines, there's a building up there. That is Cosalari. And now St. Michelle sold their ownership to it to Antinori, who they were 50% owners. Now they're 100% owners. So that's who my neighbor is, the Antinori family out of Italy. Duckhorn out of Napa Valley, right next to Cosalari, is their vineyard, called Long Winds. But a press release came out a little bit ago saying that Duckhorn they closed their canvasback tasting room. So I'm not quite sure what's going to happen with their, um, with their Washington presence. So that's probably, some announcements come about that soon. The Canadians own property here. So because my canopy is so crazy, you can't see the vineyard next to this, but next to this is the Canadian owners. They are called the Aquilini family. So they're an Italian family who they own the Canadian Canucks and a lot of retail space, tons of restaurants, all that fun stuff. Okay, so any questions so far before I show you the barrel room?
Not a question, but it's just so gorgeous out there. Like, can't wait to visit.
I hope you do visit. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun out here. Okay, so this is my crush pad, and if you can imagine, these grapes will be ready. I'm predicting, like, I'm thinking like in October, because they're normally perfectly ready in October. We have crazy long, warm days, lots of great sun. And if all of that happens this year, this fruit would be perfectly ripe, and I could pick this Cabernet Sauvignon in October, probably the beginning of October. And I have a crew that comes out and they will hand pick it. So they'll cut the clusters off. I prefer that over harvesting, like machine harvesting right now. I've done a test to have harvesters come out to my vineyard, and the harvesters do a great job, but it takes away one step from the production, which gives me a little bit less control. So I like having it handpicked. So when the crew comes in and handpick, they cut those clusters off. They bring it to me on the crush pad in these bins, and I have all my equipment pulled out here. Right now, all of my equipment is in this room with that last bay door right there. But during harvest, it's all pulled out. My crusher destemmer, my basket press, my auger, all of that's pulled out here. And this is where 98% of the work happens. So if it's raining or wind is blowing, it doesn't matter. I just throw my Carhartts on and I'm out here working, because I know that if I make any shortcuts, I will regret it, because there are no do-overs when it comes to wine. I have to pick it at the right time, I have to process it correctly. I don't have a lab with beakers and chemicals and stuff like that to make any corrections. Like, I get what I get. Mother Nature gives me what it gives me, and I have to use that to make amazing wines. So my process of fermentation out here takes about 10 days. And within those 10 days, I'm doing punch downs twice a day. All that means is that when I put the berries in a bin and I throw the yeast in it, the skins rise to the top, the juice goes to the bottom. And we all know that you get the flavor, the tannin, and the color of wine from the skins. So I do punch downs twice a day. After 10 days, I then press it off with a really beautiful basket press that I have that's in that room over there. And then it goes into barrel. So this is the barrel room right here. It is 55 degrees. Ignore this. These are my new 2023. Oh, my Lord. I just showed a brand new label that I'm launching. Oh my gosh, Hue Society, you're seeing all my secrets. I don't think you noticed that over there, but um,
We
so
won't
here's a
tell.
barrel room.
Exclusive.
Didn't see a
Right?
thing. Didn't see a thing.
Didn't see a thing. So this is my barrel room, and these are all the 2024 wines that are here. And the thing that I will show you for the barrels, let's see if we can find, like this one right here. We use a fancy system of painter's tape and Sharpie. But my nomenclature is really simple. It's the vintage, the vineyard, and then the varietal. So it's a 2024. The QT stands for Quintessence Vineyard, which is a pretty famed Red Mountain vineyard. And what do you think that varietal is? If you were to guess what that MB stands for, what do you think it stands for?
Malbec.
Perfect. Yep. Malbec. 2024 Quintessence Malbec. Ana Selección is a cooperage out of France. We love their barrels. So we have a lot of those. Let's do this one. So this one is a 2024. The vineyard is Red Heaven. What do you think the variety is?
Syrah.
Syrah. Perfect. Exactly. Let's do one more. Here's another Anna barrel. That's a 2024. The vineyard is Scootney Flats Vineyard. What do you think the variety is?
Pete Verdot.
Petit Verdot. Awesome. All right, I said one more, but let's just do one more. This Boussouet barrel has a wine in it. It's a 2024. The OB stands for Obelesco, which is a vineyard that's not even a mile from me on the same road that I'm on. What's that variety?
Cabernet Sauvignon.
Perfect. Cabernet Sauvignon. Yeah. Cool. So 55 degrees is what this is kept at. These are all full of wine. The cool thing about this is that we rarely open these barrels. So when we so these are 2024s, which means that the harvest was last year. We processed that fruit last year. We pressed off, got it into barrel. So we opened these barrels in February. And we did what's called rack and return. And what rack and return is that we take the wine out of the barrel. We clean the barrel because what happened is you have some of the dead yeast cells that fall to the bottom. We just call it like a sediment, but it's really dead yeast cells they go to the bottom of the barrel. And some winemakers like to impart that in their wines. They do what's called batonnage, where they stir that into their wine, and that gives them kind of a velvety mouthfeel and more tannin, but it is also kind of tart. So our preference for Frichette is we like to take that out. So we rack the wines, take the wine out of the barrel. We run 180-degree water in that barrel, clean it out, and then we put the wine back into the barrel, and then we put the bung on and sit it back in. We won't touch these again. We'll go through and we'll taste them, and I don't know, towards the end of the year to see if we like what we're tasting, if we think they need to be racked. We'll top them up because we get what's called an angel share, where we lose some wine. So we will empty one barrel to top up, the other barrels, because we don't like that head space in the barrel. We, for our preference, we feel like the quality of our wines improve if you don't have that, that head space in, and you limit the access to oxygen. But we don't open them that often. I know sometimes for folks, they're just like, oh my God, it'd be awesome to taste out of barrels. The time to taste out of our barrels is during the springtime, when we are opening them up to top them. And then we're also blending, or doing what's called blending trials, where we're pulling wine out of the barrel. So we're trying to decide, like, oh, how do we want to blend this? Which wines go well with the other ones? Is it going to be a single variety? We do that so we can start to do things like, we need to get the label made because we have to run it through the Tax and Trade Bureau. They have to approve our labels before we can get them printed and get it onto the new vintage of the bottle. So we don't open them that often because we feel like that impacts the quality of the wine. All right, so now it's really over to you. What questions do you have? What can I answer for you? What are you curious about?
What states do you ship to, or don't ship to? Probably would be a better question. Kind of know the answer, but let's just go for it.
I know what Arkansas I don't ship to, Michigan I don't ship to, Georgia I don't ship to. I'll tell you why. I love those states and I love the people in those states. For us, we actually do our own compliance, and what that means is that we pull a permit in the states that we either have family in or friends in, or maybe there's a demand. Let's say if we were to go on, we'll go on Instagram and we'll say like, hey, we ship to these 15 states. Which state should we add? Because we add a state every year. So we'll ask what state should we add. And if there's a lot of demand, like there was a lot of demand for Texas. Texas used to be a difficult state to ship to, but it's a pretty easy state now. It was at the first time I looked at it, was a little expensive for us because you have to pay for that permit and then you report to that state and you have to understand their compliance. So they may say like, oh, you can ship only 8 bottles of wine a year to our residents. Where it's like, well, one of my wine clubs is 24 bottles a year. So that won't work. So you have to understand the compliance. And so we ship right now to about 15 states, and there's states again, like we have family in or friends in, or a reciprocal state like California, which is like $10 a year. And I just pay them their taxes every quarter. They make it super easy. Oregon is another easy state to work with. So, so those are, but unfortunately, I don't ship to the states that are here. Florida is the state I ship to, North Carolina,
Yes, perfect.
DC, I ship to DC, Texas, the Pacific Northwest, Arizona, Iowa, Idaho. Trying to think of any Midwest places. Mm, Gosh, I can't think of any place else I ship to. Missouri. Yeah.
What about like Illinois?
No, you know what? I get
Oh,
that
okay.
question. I've gotten that question before. Sometimes, so since we're like such a small wine area, we look at sometimes when our airport picks up a nonstop flight from someplace, we start to see folks
Mm,
come from those areas. They visit us and they want to join our wine club, and so we start to take note of that. So
mm,
we've had some folks coming from Illinois that I'm just really curious about. Not quite sure what other things are bringing them here, but
hmm,
that's a state that's on my radar.
interesting. Another
Yeah.
question I had. So you mentioned 10 months in the barrels. Do you age any of your wines in the bottle?
Um, well, so we age for anywhere between 18 to 24 months in barrel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
18 to 24 months in barrel. So some of our wines, sometimes they age, 2+ years.
Wow. Okay.
So the answer to that would be not really. And
Okay.
here's what I would say about that. When we bring in a mobile bottling line to bottle our wines, and the line that we use right now, he has a very slow process for movement of wine. Um, and so it doesn't shake our wines up. And true, the
Mm,
wine is going from barrel, and then we move it into tank. And then we do a cross flow filtration, we move it into another tank, and then it goes into a bottle. So it is moving from like a small vessel to a large vessel, and then eventually into a much smaller vessel, different material being glass, but it's not shaken up and moved so much, right?
mm,
So we don't experience bottle shock in the way that
mm,
traditionally people think about bottle
mm-hmm,
shock. But to me, I would just say, well, I feel like our wine does need to sit. I don't know what length of time it should sit, but
mm,
here's the true test of it. We host what's called a new vintage preview. And if we bottle our wines in May, which we did with the 2023 vintage of wines, we bottled in May. Last Saturday, we did that event called New Vintage Preview.
mm-hmm,
And that's where our Case Club members get to try all the new wines before they're ever released. When the consumer tastes a wine and they say, I'm taking this wine to share right now. I'm
mm,
taking this
mm-hmm,
wine tonight to open up. I have an event coming up that I'm going to have this wine. Those wines were bottled just last month.
Wow.
So that's the true test when I have folks who are familiar with our wines because they're club members, meaning like they've committed to purchasing our wines, and over time they've they understand our style, they've had our wines over the last few years, that they can try a wine that was just bottled and they want to drink it. Now some of them, like a Petit Verdot, that has always been a wine, in my opinion, that we make that doesn't take to movement really well. I don't know why. That one doesn't take to movement really well. um Sometimes with like our blends, that one's one that when I taste it, I just feel like it could harmonize better in the bottle, that it would taste better. Merlot is another one for me that for some reason, I mean, it's really great when we bottle it, but to me, I like that wine when it sits for 6 months, even a year. But
Okay.
that's to me, a personal preference, but the consumer to me is my biggest,
Sure.
you
Yeah.
know,
Okay. Thank you.
of course.
What is your biggest seller like for red and white? Like, what do people know you for?
People know us for amazing, bold, smooth wines. I look at our report on what wines are selling, and honestly, it's up and down. One day it's Merlot, the next day it's Punctual, the next day it's Cabernet Franc. We don't really have like that one seller, which I used to feel like I needed. And now I'm just like, I don't think that has to be the case. I would say the wine that's easiest for our wine club members to add on is our Punctual, because that's a very approachable, easy drinking wine. I think for a lot of folks, they get their club allotment and they're like, "Oh, just add 3 bottles of Punctual to it." The Punctual is a lot of Cab Franc and a little bit of Cabernet Sauvignon, but it's all over the board, and I've just kind of accepted that. I think it comes down to when we make a premium, high quality wine where we're never cutting corners. We're putting everything into making amazing wine, doing it the right way, letting the work happen in the vineyard, that you're just going to get a high quality wine. And then after that, it kind of comes to preference. I think sometimes folks are just like, I'm just not a Syrah drinker, or I'm not a whatever drinker. And it just comes to preference. A lot of our club members, when they come in and they're getting a bottle of wine or a glass of wine, it's super common for them to say, "Oh, just bring me something red, you pick." That to me is a huge compliment, that they're like, "I enjoy any of your wines, whatever you're going to bring to me, I'll love." It puts a lot of pressure on me. I'm like, "Oh my God, I want to make sure I get it right." I just go to their profile and I look at like, well, what do they usually buy? What do they kind of steer towards?
I would be that kind of person too, though. I'll be like, just pour me something. I trust you.
Yeah.
Um, so a
So
question
much
I was gonna,
pressure.
yeah, I was gonna ask, is your winery having any upcoming events? Because I was trying to get down to you, but I was in Vancouver last summer. I didn't make it into Washington. So,
Mm.
do you, are you hosting any events, or is there something we should put on our calendars that maybe I could plan around?
You know what's so fun is that we post our event in January for our entire year. And so we kind of do the same sort of things every year, to be honest. I always do a soul food dinner because I'm from the South, and it just kind of feels like home when I can host a soul food dinner. I do it I started off educating folks like why in the South soul food exists, especially like in my state of South Carolina with the South Atlantic slave trade coming through there, and why I'm familiar with certain foods and why my family makes certain foods. So that's an event that's a dinner event that's important to me, and so I host that every year. It used to be in October. This year I'm hosting it in August. I do a Motown R&B dinner event every year. It's normally more casual. I just have like a barbecue truck out here with tri-tip and ribs and collard greens and mac and cheese. And I changed it this year to a wine and blanc soiree, a dress all white party that still has a different type of a menu with salmon, more of a Pacific Northwest theme. And we do a lot of educational tasting events. So we do the new vintage preview, library tastings, We'll do a cab sauv vineyard designate dinner because we make like 5 or 6 different cabs every year from different vineyards. Some of those vineyards are only like a football field apart. So that one's more, it's a fabulous dinner. It's very red meat heavy. Like this year it had 4 cuts of steak. So it seems like it's a dinner event, but it's really more of an educational event. So it's nice to intersect a good dinner with education. But all those events, we post we do a farm to fork every year that sells out in about 45 minutes. Um, I bring a chef, a James Beard nominated chef from Seattle, Chef Sabrina Tinsley. I usually bring her over. Last year I had Chef Trey Lamont, who has Jerk Shack in Seattle. So he did a dinner for me. So we usually just post in January for the entire year of events. It just makes it easier for people to plan. Coming up, I have a tasting at Shaw on Saturday. We're doing a yoga event for the first time. Um, I have the Wine and Blanc, the Dress All White party with the R&B Motown band coming up, Farm to Fork coming up. So some fun stuff.
Thanks. I'm at to plan a trip.
Yeah, please do. And do keep in contact. Let me know when you're doing it. That way I can, help make recommendations for some accommodations. I have some friends who own like a beautiful glass house. I call it the glass house. It's like a mile and a half up the road from me, same side of the road, floor to ceiling windows, and has a fire pit and a hot tub that overlooks the vineyard. It's a gorgeous space. And if you're going to be visiting, and especially if you're bringing friends, that's the place to be. There's 2 wineries right across the street that you can walk to. And so if you're coming over, then it just makes sense for us to just build that itinerary for you. That way you don't have to think about what to do. I can tell you where stuff is. So like if you're coming in on Thursday, I'll just say, oh, there's live music here. Or Friday, there's dinner in a vineyard. Saturday, there's this, so we can help make it really easy for you.
Yeah, we
I
might have
love
to
easy,
plan
but
a youth society trip over there for next year.
That's what I'm hearing. I don't know. That's
Fall.
kind of what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Cool. So what final questions do you have?
This has been great. Thank you.
yeah, thank you for your time and your knowledge.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. Like it really is a pleasure. This is a lot of fun to do things like this and to get to show our space. And I love that you are, seeing some of it. And then when you visit, you'll be like, oh, you didn't show us that part. One thing I'll show you before I let you go. When it's my get it in the frame. So So here's the tasting room right here. It's work in progress. There's a vineyard right next to us. That's Rattlesnake Mountain right there. And just for context, there's Red Mountain. And then our vineyard that I was walking in next to, and back to the tasting room. So when we were looking at this property, there was a trailer house that was right here. That was the door we were knocking on, right on the other side of that tractor. And those folks said no to us 4 times, and we ended up buying their place. We lived in that trailer house for 10 years, and it was just moved about a month ago. And so my goal is to put a little more parking over there, and then in the next 5 years, I'll have 5 guest suites there. Takes money to do that stuff. So, I'm just doing baby steps. So a little bit of parking, and then I'll do seating area. Then we'll do some RV spots. And then in 5 years, I'll have 5 guest suites that I have a deck off of it so that you can see, you can sit on your deck and view Rattlesnake and just be amongst the vines because there's vines on both sides.
You mentioned Candy Mountain. Is it visible from here?
There it is
Oh,
right there. So you can see there's grapes where the green is. Those are wine grapes. So that's Candy Mountain right there. So
oh
just for
wow.
context, there's Red Mountain right here. And then there's Candy Mountain right there, which is great hiking too. So everything's just really, really, really close. And Yeah.
And I came there from Walla Walla, I think. I drove there from.
Yeah,
think that's
if you were traveling here, flying in, the airport that you want to, and Walla Walla is a 50-minute drive from here. It's a great wine area. They have a lot of wineries there. Their wines are very different from ours. It's a great wine region. I think if you were to travel here, you could fly into Seattle, which is 3-hour drive, or Portland, which is a 3-hour drive. Play around those places. Just hop in the car, easy 3-hour drive here to
Yeah.
Red Mountain. Spend a couple days here, hop over for a day trip to Walla Walla, which is just, like I said, less than an hour's drive away. Enjoy wine and wineries there. Hop back to Red Mountain. There's also Prosser, which is 20 miles away. There's Zilla and Yakima Valley, which is another 45 minutes. So there's a lot of, if you're into sparkling wine, there's like 3 wineries around this area. All they do is sparkling wine. So there's a lot of really cool, just a lot of really cool stuff.
Yeah, that's what I did, a road trip from Portland and then stopping at wine regions on the way to Seattle.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah. You'll have to do it again. A lot has changed. There's a lot, more wineries that have popped up, and yeah, be fun.
Yeah, definitely need to come back out.
Okay, cool.
But this was awesome. You're such
Oh,
a great
good.
educator.
Yeah, so great.
Well, hopefully we could do this again. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll toss it back over to you to close up, and my info again. I'll pass my info along so that you can connect with me. Do connect on socials. I love, like, especially if you're on LinkedIn. I love that platform. It's probably a platform I spend the most time on. I don't post a whole lot on LinkedIn, but it's where I'm in the back channels and DMing and making a lot more connections there. And being a resource there, a lot of times on LinkedIn, I'm seeing what other folks are needing and doing, and it's easier just to back channel. Everybody doesn't have to see your business, right, and know what you're doing and who you're supporting, but I love just hitting in the back channel and showing how it can support. So thank you for having me. I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much for this. This was such a gift. Appreciate it. Appreciate you showing us your vineyard, and it was so educational. I'm sure people are going to love the replay. I got a little bit of video content just for like social media that we'll tag you in as well. But thank you so much, and definitely planning to do this again. And I'm actually like my wheels are turning about curating a trip out there. I think that would be really great. So thank you everyone for joining. Shae, I don't know if you had one last thing to say before we all jump.
What I would just say is I love that you're open to wine. I love that the Houston site exists and that you have the opportunity to share wine experiences. And that's what this industry is about. It seems like there's so much to learn and know. And even being in wine, like I take viticulture classes and boot camps because there's so much opportunity and learning, and there's opportunities within this industry. So I would say keep learning, keep enjoying wine. And if I can ever be a resource, let me know.
Thank you so much. Everybody have a great night. Talk to you soon.
Cool. Bye, guys. Thank you.